reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network. You're listening to Defiance Reporter on the MMO Reporter Network, brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/MMO Reporter. And by Doghouse Systems. Choose your weapon with Doghouse Systems.
Greetings, Ark Hunters. Woohoo! We're episode 31 now.
Wow, that's a milestone. That's 1 over 30.
1 over 30. I know. I'm creating mock joy so that I can be happy. It's about to get really, really slow in the world of Defiance, and I just want to create some excitement. So, joining us today, we have Michelle, our illustrious co-host. Michelle, how are you doing?
Doing so well. I'm so excited because we have stuff to talk about.
We do. We have a lot of good news. Before we get started, though, did you see, Michelle? Kevin Murphy tweeted at us.
Okay, you do not have to notify me that. I saw that right away, and I was so... Don't worry, I definitely fangirled out for you. So you didn't even have to fanboy because I was there.
I may or may not have squeed in glee.
Julie Benz would be so proud of you.
Well, the thing is he responded very quickly to what I had tweeted. I had expressed some concern that the Jesse Does Defiance were going to be the webisodes. It was not something I was thinking was true, but I had this dark, sinister thought that, oh my gosh, what if that's what they're going to do? They're just going to pass those off as webisodes. And he replied very, very quickly saying, no, that's not the case. That we're pretty much 75% done with the webisodes. We're just doing effects, and they should be out late March.
I still say that he was basically trolling your Twitter feed because he responded so quickly. That just shows, first of all, he's an awesome guy, but then second, he's totally paying attention. So that was just really nice.
Even when he's really, really busy with his Heather's musical.
I know. I did see how he promoted that during like one of the, because you guys even had some follow-up tweets going on there. Like he didn't just stop at one. He kept going, and he did promote Heather's the musical.
Yes. So, Mr. Murphy, thank you for that. We appreciate your response. I was hanging in there. I really wanted some good news, and that made my day.
And you know why? Because I think you hit on something that I know I had thought about. Because at this point, we'd seen, 2 or 3 of those Jesse Does Defiance.
Right.
And probably most of the fandom also was kind of, the devil on their shoulder saying, oh no, is this it until June?
And no offense to those videos, because those are great videos. I love them.
Oh, he's got such talent. I mean, he's incredibly dry sense of humor, funny. He's so talented.
He's almost charming.
He is. I mean, I want to marry him, and I don't even do that.
This episode, we're totally going to reminisce the final episodes before the Season 1 finale with Michelle and the Relive Defiance tweets. We're going to talk about the wave of Season 2 information and propaganda that is coming our way, and the announcement of the 5th and final Season 1 DLC for Defiance the game. So it promises to be an exciting show.
Yes.
Drama in Defiance.
Defiance Season 2 has been announced with a premiere date.
Thank God. Thank Urzu.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's so exciting.
So, Huffington Post, or the HuffPost TV section, was lucky enough to get an exclusive for Sci-Fi. They are the ones who got to announce the premiere date, June 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, for Season 2. Not only that, they also got to announce the webisodes that we just finished talking about. The webisodes that are to bridge the gap between Season 1 and 2, they look awesome, guys. I mean, they really do. They are show quality. There's going to be 5 of them. Yeah, 5 installments. They're about 3 to 5 minutes a piece. So, if you max them out at 5 minutes, it's 25 minutes. That's about a full episode of Defiance. That's just not bad.
It's great. And even the because the first one they released was I think a little over 5 or right at 5 minutes. And when you watch it, it feels, and this is a good thing, it feels a lot longer because it's such a rich clip. There's a lot going on. So I felt like I had watched at least a 10-minute, clip of the show. I was just so excited. And also I have to note, so the time is different, so let's not all gather Mondays at 9 p.m. We're going to be gathering at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm saying that just so that I'll remember and not completely miss the premiere and be an hour late to it.
We are
So,
definitely going to be live tweeting that premiere. Now, it is
oh
June
yeah.
19th. Now that we have a solid date, we can start the countdown.
Yeah, someone start the clock out there. Other than Kevin Chan, I think he was already since off Kevin Chan. I think he had already started a clock, and I think Hellbugs was speculating on a date, and I'm so glad. I think she was right. I
June
think,
19th, yeah.
but yeah, so she kind of hit it on the head. But I'm so glad we have a date, and kudos to them for not only because you know sometimes people like to drag the stuff out, so. I'm glad HuffPo didn't just give us a date and then maybe later give us a clip. Like we got all this in one, and I was just super excited.
That's not the amazing part. Yes, they got to do this exclusive. They also exclusively get to show you the first episode of The Lost Ones, which is what they're calling the mini episodes. Excuse me, the
Do you
minisodes.
like that name? Do you like that name,
The,
The Lost Ones?
well, it kind of alludes to immediately. It draws imagery of Nolan and Erissa.
Mm-hmm.
Erissa is lost and Nolan is chasing after her. And it kind of describes the state we left season one, where everybody's just kind of wandering around. So, yeah, I think the name
Yeah.
is perfect. Now, I'm hoping that that's just the first initial impression that we're supposed to be given, and that it's a deeper meaning to it.
Yeah, I'm hoping there is another kind of layer to that. And even the first one, it didn't exactly start out the way that I thought these webisodes were going to start. So I thought they were going to start with just immediately linking us from season one to season two, but they're going way, way back. They're almost, this first one was almost like I mean, there was a lot of flashback in the first one that we saw.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's completely all flashback. There was
Yeah, the tiki bar scene was, yeah, that was not a flashback.
it's Nolan looking for Arissa right now. The first episode is available at Huffington Post. I'll have a link in the show notes for you to watch. The other thing is, though, guys, is this isn't the only video that's going to be released. On Friday, all 5 of the episodes are going to be released on sci-fi.com. And by Monday, if you have basic cable or basic satellite, it will be available on Sci-Fi On Demand. So you can watch all 5 of them back to back, binge them, and be quite satisfied.
This is tricky for the Defiance fandom because number one, so let me make sure. So this is available to us here in the US, and also this is available for those in the UK?
See, I haven't seen any announcements about other services doing this. I don't know if
Yeah.
sci-fi.com/EU is doing
Yeah,
the same thing.
sometimes they're different. You know what? We'll once they do release them, we'll make sure. I mean, I don't. We'll look into this, and I'm sure we'll update everyone on Twitter as to what the deal is. That just crossed my mind, so that's something that we'll make sure that we look at.
Yeah, there was no disclaimer about US only, so I'm assuming that these are going to be released to everybody. And if not, they're going to be on sci-fi.com, which means they'll eventually end up on YouTube,
Yes.
and I think everybody will eventually get to see them. Now,
Which is the other tricky thing about this is so I mean I know Netflix is doing this. This is how people watch TV now. They all you binge watch it all at once. But that's the problem. See, I do binge watch it all at once. And I'm gonna watch every one of these videos, come Monday, and then I'm gonna have nothing for the next 6 months. I almost wished they would have released them once a week almost.
well, it would seem like 6 months, but it's really only 2.5.
It is, which, I mean, I like to drag things out. I like to build momentum, but I'm so excited we get like a half hour of actual real Defiance coming
Yeah,
Monday.
and you're right. We've created an era of binge watchers. I mean, we sit there, we turn on Netflix and pound down a season of Dexter or something,
Yeah,
and we don't even bat an eyelash to it. It's like, oh, that was a good weekend spent. I watched the whole season. Really?
right. And you don't even have time to, which almost makes you question like the quality of the show, which Defiance this isn't the case because this is just, mini episodes, but it's like, well, um, Like, would you keep coming back to this week after week after week, or is it just because you were able to binge watch it? Is that why you're actually watching it? But that's another podcast discussion, so I digress. But I think you very much enjoyed this first webisode, excuse me, right? Right, Ben? You
Yeah,
liked
yeah,
it?
I did like it. There was a couple interesting things. First off, it starts off with Nolan walking into almost an empty bar that's decorated with a tiki theme, which
Which was hilarious. Like the when he walked in, it was so dramatic. I mean, it was like hard Nolan walking into a bar, and then they cut, and it's just these, it's a tiki bar, and there's all these fun colors and just one guy.
and if Nolan walked in with a Hawaiian shirt and a hula skirt, he still would have fit in.
Exactly.
The thing that gets me though is everything is so scarce now. This
Hmm.
bar owner has collected tiki mementos for God knows how long to decorate his bar in this theme.
And so that there's one person in it. I mean, you're right. That takes dedication right there. That's a niche market.
And there's only one guy sitting at the bar drinking. No bartender.
Yeah.
Where the heck's the bartender?
Which that's a good question. Where is the bartender? I kind of do want to know.
The whole story starts unraveling. Nolan is looking for Arissa, and he starts talking to the guy at the bar, who, by the way, happens to be wearing an E-Rep jacket. But it's not current E-Rep outfit. Current E-Rep outfit is very much solid black.
Right, because that's what they're always wearing on the show. So
Right.
that actually confused me. So it was a very, and it harks back to the what Nolan was wearing in his flashback.
Right. Him and his unit were wearing these camo threaded uniform, and this jacket is exactly what the guy at the bar is wearing, so we don't know how the guy at the bar ended up with that jacket.
Right, that's a good point. Nolan asked that. So
But
I mean, it doesn't mean that he was actually an E-Rep soldier back then.
no. But it does allude to the fact that he knows where Irissa is because Irissa was given a jacket very much like it.
Hmm.
Some of the questions that were brought up in my mind when I was watching this is, do we really believe this guy drinking at the bar knows absolutely anything about Irissa or where she could be? Or is he just stringing Nolan along? And at the very end of the episode, somebody got the jump on No Man.
Right. Okay, I'm just gonna put it out there. I have absolutely no idea who that person would have been. I mean, I haven't had that much time to think about it. I mean, I did just see the clip today, but I don't know who that would be and why they would be so.
What I'm thinking is that is the bartender, and they have not revealed the bartender because it's going to be a bigger reveal. Like, maybe we know who that bartender is. And this is where I start thinking about a little Miss Lady who is venturing out of her comfort zone.
You think?
Maybe. It's wild, wild
I would love
speculation.
that. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'm way out there with that, but it would be pretty awesome if I was right. And of course,
yeah.
you talked about flashback. There was one big flashback. It was like 2.5 minutes long, took up half the episode, and it's a continuation of a flashback we had before, where Nolan rescues Arissa when she's little.
And yeah, because that first flashback was during the whole, my least favorite episode, the snake torture scene, if I'm recalling that
That
right.
that was your least favorite?
Was it? Well, remember, it just creeps me out, and it's going to creep me out later because now I've thought about it and I've got it in my head. But that whole, but yeah, he did rescue her, and I'm so glad they continued that flashback because I just have always wondered how they ended up kind of having this relationship just after, because in the episode it just showed him whisking in and taking her out, and so I've just always wondered how that relationship developed, and of Nolan of all people, whose prize is who, like, he's always thinking about his next pickup as far as women, how he ended up with this little girl. So I'm so glad they continued that.
It's really interesting to see Nolan trying to connect with this little Erathian girl who has not spoken a word, so he doesn't know if she speaks Erathian or if she speaks English or what, who is pretty defiant to him, just sitting there, not... She crept away from him every time he came near her.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and she didn't say anything, but he was trying so hard. I saw a whole new side of Nolan that I knew was there, but it was so sweet.
she felt safe enough with him that she jumped in his arms when he held them open.
Mm-hmm.
So that should tell you something. She's got this general idea of Nolan, but still doesn't want to push that. She just wants to test the waters. And you can see this
When she took the candy from a stranger, we're up to brain share there, then.
She did.
Because she ate that chocolate bar, and that's something that you are never supposed to do. I don't know if they teach that in like Arathian circles, but humans have got that covered.
But did you notice that she spit that out?
Yeah, well, because I guess so she never had chocolate before. What a horrible existence.
Okay, well, first off, is it because she's never had chocolate before? Or is it the quality of the chocolate bar itself? It could be ancient.
It could. It could have been completely expired. I don't, or I think more along the lines of her just being, like you said, defiant and not giving him that sort of power over her. I like to think of it that way, actually.
It could also be the fact that their palate is not refined enough for sweet things. I mean, if,
Oh, yeah, they're just used to eating like nuts, berries, and
well,
terraformed fruit.
whatever they're used to eating, you know?
Yeah.
I just, maybe they don't have sweet things. And in a world that's kind of post-apocalyptic and terraformed, there's not a lot of sweet things left.
Yeah, and I love how he gave her. I mean, where do you get a whole chocolate bar in post-apocalyptic Earth? I mean, it wasn't like just a little miniature Butterfinger. Like it was a Willy Wonka golden ticket chocolate bar. I mean, he must have really liked her. He really wanted to make a connection. And then, what's his name? Uncle Eddie comes in, and he was not friendly to Arissa at
Well,
all.
it wasn't that he was not friendly. I don't know if she understood what he said or not, but she felt that vibe of indifference from him.
Yeah, and that like Eret Beret didn't help either. It took me a moment to actually place him when he came into the flashback because I thought I know that face, but what is going on here? So it did take me actually a couple seconds to be like, oh, Uncle Eddie.
Well, Fias in the chat room mentioned something very interesting. He mentions that chocolate could also taste really bitter to them. He said that David Peterson has mentioned Erathians classify things based on whether they are harmful or helpful to them.
Oh, that's a great point. So that's almost so they also probably don't drink coffee either
Well,
because that would be really bitter too.
where would chocolate fall between harmful and helpful? Honestly, I mean, it could be helpful
Yeah.
in the sense that it's a bartering currency. He did say it's a precious commodity.
Yeah, it would be so it's like bartering. It's well, but for humans though,
Well,
which I guess. But if people do realize that it's a valuable commodity, then that would cross all, basically all, species.
yeah, but I'm also jumping outside the frame of what does it taste like to them and going into more value to people. So I understand what Fias is talking about, and he
Mhm.
does make a good point. Well, we're not really ever going to know unless we get more insight from David Peterson or the showrunners.
Right.
Yeah, we need to
And Fias is right. Yeah.
we need to get David Peterson on the show
I think he would love to do it if he had the time.
if he had the time. He sounds like a
Yeah,
very
exactly.
busy man. You made some comments here about the episode. What were the things that stood out to you?
Well, of course, mine are always astute and groundbreaking, but my favorite point to make is that Nolan's dance and the quote yesterday crazy god party is probably my favorite quote of all the webisodes, and I haven't even seen them yet, but he's excuse me, he's trying to communicate sorry, he's trying to communicate with Arissa, and his Arathian is not that good, and she had just come from this really bad torturous event, and he summarizes it with the translation is, so yesterday was a crazy god party, and I mean, I cracked up. I had to pause the webisode. It was just
He
so
even did a
funny.
little dance to it. Did you notice? A little bit. He
The
did.
dance is what killed it for me. I was like, this is amazing. And you could tell Grant was having so much fun with that scene. It was just, I just loved it.
And then you have a
Um,
beautiful comment here about Katie Douglas.
Yeah, so no wonder. So on Twitter a few weeks ago, she's like, hey, check me out as Urzu and season 2 of Defiance. And I was like, great, everyone needs Urzu in their lives. But I didn't even think, oh, she's going to be in these webisodes. And she's just really good. She was really great in this one. I actually, liked
She
her.
projects a lot more primal emotion than Stephanie
Hmm.
Leonidas does even, and Stephanie's doing a good job all on her own. So,
I
but if you
know.
think about it, Katie Douglas is playing such a young Arissa who isn't experienced, who's almost purely 100% Erathian up until this tragic
Hmm.
incident in her life, And she's very much more primal and less grounded than Stephanie Leonis's character. So, yeah, she's a fabulous little actor, and I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of flashbacks with Irzu, or even conversations between Stephanie and Katie.
Yeah, which will also be really cool just to see how they play off of each other in those two roles rather than her just playing a young
And
Arissa. So
that's
it'll be interesting and confusing all at once, I think,
well,
as we go
it's going to
forward.
be additionally interesting because it's already very interesting that Irissa's having a conversation with herself. I mean, those kind of conversations are already very interesting, just
Right.
because you're talking with yourself and you're acting dynamic and fluidly with yourself, and now you've got this younger version of yourself who's going to be more Arathian, hopefully, and less what you are now, but excuse me, but still with your wisdom.
Yeah, I'm looking for, I mean, also the webisodes, but definitely a lot of that's going to be coming in season two, and I'm looking forward to that dynamic. And then I do have to say, so as far as cliffhangers go, I mean, it's a good thing the rest of these webisodes are coming out, Friday and Monday because what? Really? You're going to leave us with that cliffhanger? Like 5 minutes and I'm so invested. I really want to know who's holding that gun. To me, it did look like kind of a male hand, but I don't know why I say that because I only saw the gun, so I don't know why I say that.
Well,
But
there was also a pretty gruff voice saying, you know,
yeah, you're right. It was pretty deep
yeah.
there.
So my hopes for it being Amanda are completely washed, but I still, I still can dream. So we've pretty much torn apart the first episode, and we'll tear apart the other four next
Yeah.
episode. Let's go ahead and move on to your wonderful Relive Defiance. We have now done what? 9, 10, and 11, which is.
Yeah, we're almost done. We're almost at that, which you know what? I have to say, this is skipping a little ahead, but I actually think that we're not there. We'll talk about this in a few minutes, but I actually think the past is prologue, the season that was right before or this episode that was right before the season finale was one of the best episodes. So I feel like episode 9, 10, and 11 is just building up and building up and building up. They're so good. And, talking about them three at a time is actually really helpful just because it's just an amazing arc of episodes. And then, you get to the finale and things ended up a little differently. And we'll talk about the finale next time. But these three episodes together, wow, game changer.
So let's go ahead and touch with the first one, episode 9. If I ever leave this world behind.
Yeah, I have to say a lot went on in this one, and you got the whole plague coming, and this was of course good for gamer. I'm actually interested in this from a gamer's perspective. So this was like a great big tie-in episode, gamers brought the cure to Defiance, that whole thing. So did you really enjoy it? Like, did that add on to you with this episode?
Yes and no. When
Okay.
when the tie-in came in, it was right before this episode, so it was right after episode 8. We've got 2 weeks to, I believe it was 2 weeks. It may have just been one week
Hmm.
to complete the episodic missions for finding the cure because the plague hit the West Coast. We had to complete, emergencies and events, and people were getting sick, and they were turning into this hosted carrier running around trying to kill people. They just went insane. We end up finding a cure and blasting it off to Defiance, where you guys are at.
Hmm.
And then episode 9, it happens when Connor and Nolan are driving to go get the cure from the rocket. Yes, it was great. There was a tie-in. I felt like what I did in the game is showing up in the show, and that's awesome. That's just cool all on its own.
Right.
But the actual playing of that, there was an instance. It was an enclosed instance. You were in this bunker. You were fighting enemies. You were listening to them put in sequences, and then you launched the rocket. It was kind of anticlimactic for us.
Oh, so okay. Now I'm gonna show my ignorance because I had always wondered watching the episode, and I guess I just missed this, and then rewatching it caught my eye. So when they launch a missile with all the supplies, yeah, the cure, I always thought I was like, really? They're transporting it by launching a missile? And then I actually did not know that you did that actual part in game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's pretty
The
cool.
reason why they transported by missile is because it was the fastest mode of transportation.
Yeah, yeah, because they don't have planes. All they have is basically rollers at this point in
Hmm.
time.
I mean,
That's
you're not gonna put a cure on top of a bus.
no. And then, well, even then, it's but my other thing, I'm like, really? Okay, gamers, you couldn't like just launch it like 10 meters further so you could get it over like that E-Rep, like they set up a wall, the E-Rep wall where Nolan and Connor couldn't get past them and they had to get special permission. I'm like, if you guys just would have hit that missile a few meters more, it would have just been inside the boundaries.
And a
That was just
few
one of
meters
those.
more straight downtown. I mean,
Right. It's just one of those plot devices that it works that way because it has to work that way for the plot.
right.
So that it always caught my attention. But it was still a really good episode. I mean, I have to say I do not like seeing Amanda Rosewater catching the plague or Christy McCauley. I mean, that was one of those episodes where I did not realize that I actually, you don't realize you actually care that much about a character. And then I got really attached to Christy in that episode. I felt so bad for her. And
And Daytak being ever so generous.
which, yeah, oh, Daytac. This was a great episode for Daytac. Number one, when he gives that, clearly, I don't know where he got that contraband pill, but he gives this, pill, and you could tell Rafe was really desperate because when on earth would you actually take something from Daytac Tar and feed it to your daughter? But clearly, Rafe was in a tough spot at that point. And, that was one of those things where there's no way Daytac was doing that out of the goodness of his heart or because he has a son and he knows how it would feel if he lost a son. I mean, that was to me just a political move. It was one more way for him to establish that he had power over Rafe and that family.
I don't think Daytak is 100% evil political mastermind.
Really? Okay,
No.
so yes, tell me this side of it.
I
So
know.
yeah.
I think that he really does genuinely have some feeling in him. He's not a cold-hearted bastard. He does have a
Okay.
son. He can relate to Rafe. Excuse me. He can relate to what Rafe is going through because he has a son. And being parents, you are willing to do anything for your children. And I think that with him seeing the future that their children are going to have together, and the fact that he still wants Macaulay's mines, he's not going to let any harm come to Christie. Now that being said, he's still not 100% evil.
Yeah, you're getting into his complexity as a character for sure. It's a lot less cynical of a way to look at it.
There's things he
Yes.
wants, and there's things he cares about, and that doesn't necessarily mean the two don't join in the same circle.
Right. And later in that episode, Amanda, I love it. Before Amanda passes out, she's very clear. She says, Rafe is in charge. And it's just funny the way things work out because, she says that, but at the same time, both Stama and Daytak know that Rafe's dealing with other problems. And even though they're helping him, they're more than willing to exploit his situation or in order to take control of the town at that point. So it's great when things that Daytak loves and things that Daytak wants coincide. And in this episode, that happened for him.
Always exploiting that weak spot, aren't they?
Nikki in this episode, she gets I love the terminology here, the golden knot, which I will forever call it that because Kaziri, it's for the first like what, 6 or 7 episodes or 4 episodes, we're like trying to, I used to call it like the golden oatmeal cream pie or
We
something.
used to
Like,
call it the golden pretzel or the golden knot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's what it will forever be known as. But I really, when rewatching it, you really get to think about all these extra kind of things and all these, superfluous comments that come about when she's talking about Pilar. So she's explaining this backstory and she's doing this in order to get what she wants. But in the process of that, it's just great writing because you do have these questions of, I'm very curious about the Macaulay's mom and what actually happened to her. Because if you think about this post-apocalyptic world where there are no medications, especially these psychotropic, medications to deal with bipolar, it's a total regression. Like you don't have these meds, so clearly they're being sent back to institutions or wherever Pilar was sent. And I hope in an event in a season or two or what have you, I want to know what happened to this. Like, I
Oh,
want to know where Pilar
I am.
is.
I am pretty sure Quentin is coming home with Pilar. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
That's my guess, and I would probably bet the farm on it.
Okay, good. I think that would complicate things quite nicely for Rafe. Not to mention Christy, I would just be so interested in how they would deal with that. I wish Nikki were still around so she could be there to, completely mess that whole situation up.
Mm.
But
Now,
I'm very intrigued.
I think Nikki was great. Cougar Nikki was awesome.
She was.
She played her hand, and I think that she's gone to the extent that she was able to go. I think her character is pretty much spent, but she went out big.
Yeah, she did. I mean, she went out with another murder, basically. It was pretty impressive. But see, this is why these three episodes work so well together. I mean, they're the perfect arc because you start finding all this stuff out about Nikki, and she gets completely taken care of in these three episodes. And then in this episode specifically, there's a lot going on in this episode between, putting Arathians in internment camps, and there's a lot of social commentary going on there. But then you've got Daytak's most horrible moment in the show, aka his scariest, aka his best, whatever you want to call it.
His
I
bipolar
mean,
moment.
yeah, exactly. Where you are just, I mean, I think this is the first time in the series that, yeah, that I was like, wow, this guy is, bat bleeping nuts, or he's got a chip on his shoulder so large. He just went completely crazy. I credit that to Tony Curran though, because he did that. He just played that scene so well. Did you think this was his best
It
scene?
was. It
Yeah.
definitely was. And honestly, there's only one other scene I like just as much as this one, and it was in a further episode. We'll discuss that
Hmm.
one later.
Oh, great. Okay.
But I can't comment on that scene. It was an excellent scene. I was shocked. I did not
Hmm.
see that coming. I mean, I expected him to pull something shady. I did not expect him to kill a room full of Arathians and Connor.
Yeah, because that's when you realize, okay, he can be manipulative and he can think about things, but there's a point where he's literally not thinking. He's working out of blind rage, and that's when you realize, okay, this guy could actually really be dangerous because right at that moment he's not manipulating anyone. He's just completely acting out this innate urge to prove himself or to rid himself of this like shame, anger, whatever you want to call it. And it's just so dangerous, mentally dangerous, that my mouth was open that entire scene. I couldn't even put any scotch in my mouth at that point. It was just I was so broken.
And
And
I felt so bad for that Arathian priestess. The priestess.
right. And I actually really liked her. She was in a few episodes. I liked what she had going. But this is a new trend, actually. This worries me. So this whole trend with shows where all the good shows these days are basically killing off characters here and there, which I guess Defiance did this with Kenya last season. But I wonder, is Defiance, we're getting really attached to these characters. I wonder if season two, if they're going to basically pull a Walking Dead or something like that and just start knocking people out that we actually care about.
And then they're gonna have to start buying a whole bunch of red shirts.
That's true. That's true. And they're going to have to start finding they really can't do that, I guess, because they're not introducing new characters all that often. So that kind of gives me some comfort in that regard.
Well, I hope honestly somebody needs to die next season. We had one major death first season. I think we need to up that and have two major deaths next season.
Well, okay, wait. So last season, you're clearly not counting. So when you say death, they can't pull like oh my God, Nolan's dead, and then, oh, he's not dead. Like that doesn't
He's
count.
not dead. That does not
Right.
count. I'm talking about the one and only Rosewater sister. What is her name?
Kenya?
Kenya.
Yeah, that was the
I
one.
just went
Yeah.
blank. Why did I just go blank? Yeah,
Well, because she's dead. You're trying to forget about her. No,
Kenya's dead. She's not coming back. She does
she
not
is
get the
not.
get out of death free card. Next season, we need two deaths to top it. She was a major
And
player.
so this is an interesting thing because I'm sitting here thinking I'm thinking if I had to part with anyone on the show, there are two people that I would
Okay,
absolutely in my heart riot if they got rid of.
I think Tommy needs to take a bullet for Arissa.
That would be fat. Ooh, but a bullet for Arissa, either Yes, I like where you're going for that with that.
He's desperately in love with Arissa. Arissa doesn't want anything to do with anybody right now. She's running away. Lord knows if she's going to rekindle that love at all, or even if she had that love, or if it was just animalistic. Either way, Tommy's going
I
to be
would
stupid.
actually like it. Yeah, I would like it better. God, I am just cynical tonight. I don't know what's wrong with me. But I would like it so much more if maybe Arissa did not feel the same way. Because think about it, Arissa's got a lot going on. I mean, does she really have time to have actual feelings for Tommy as much as I like him?
But that's
But
the best time in drama.
true. I mean,
The
true.
most
That's
fracked up person ends up with the most love interests.
I know. And Tommy's so sweet though. He almost, for a minute there, I thought he was going to be the one that died at the end of at the season finale of season one,
True.
and he didn't. So, oh, you know who else I mean, I don't want to see him go anywhere, but so Rafe is a possibility
Rafe
just
is a
because
possible.
he's so wrapped up in things, and I could see him going that way. Or I could see, because think about it, if there's a cast-within human baby, I could see something happening to Christy and setting something off. Or I don't see anything happening to like, Alec or anything like that, but I could see Christy. I mean, now we're getting to season two predictions, which we will talk about
Yeah, we'll talk
at
about
another
upcoming
point.
deaths because
But
I've got some ideas strewing in my head right now. So we'll talk about that next episode. Let's go ahead and move on to the next episode 10, The Bride Wore Black.
the wedding episode, which I always thought was going to be so boring, and it ended up being, I
Interesting.
thought, a pretty good episode. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they promoted it with just a straight up wedding, and I thought, who cares? Like, who cares about the wedding? But they did it so well in this
There was
episode.
a lot of interesting things in this episode, like the Tilo.
Yeah, and all the, well, just the different rituals, which you brought up a really, really good point about the bachelor party.
Right, the bachelor party, where he was to mount his human quote unquote bride in front of all his Erathian buddies. Was that alien? Was that human? Was that barbaric? Or was that basically all of those things? I didn't see it as very much alien at all. I saw that as very much human and very barbaric.
Which, hey, that makes sense to me. Human and barbaric, there you go.
Well, I
But
mean, bach-
you're right. I had not thought of it that way.
bachelor parties usually have. Usually, I'm surmising here for everybody in the U.S. Bachelor parties
Yeah.
usually have some kind of risque female declothing or dancing or something of that nature. And here they want him to basically mount her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
want to see it all,
freaking
basically.
Dothraki style, you know?
Right, right. Which maybe that was their way of making it more alien, or maybe that was the writer's way of being like, oh, we'll make it alien.
But
We'll
to me,
we'll go all the
it
way.
just felt like raunchy men.
But even the practice of it, even that whole idea of having, because the way they made it look was very much like a bachelor party, which is I would just imagine that that's not really an alien thing. And they're so good at making differences between the species that that was just one thing that once you brought it up, it really just didn't sit right with me.
And Fias just stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to bring
Oh,
up the
yeah?
fact that that whole episode, Jesse Rath, Alec, was pushing his human side and not his casty side. He was brought up on
Mm.
Earth. He has Earth traditions and values instilled in him just because of the friends he associates with or the people he grew up with, not the casty traditions because he didn't grow up on casty.
True. That's a good point. And he did not look entirely comfortable during that whole scene.
No, he did not. But again, this is a whole group of casties. It wasn't just him. It was a whole bunch of his peers. And granted, they're all of the same generation and they all would have been brought up on Earth. I think that it's still close enough to the time that they've landed that they would have still had their casty influences and less of the Earth influences. Still.
Yeah, I mean, I thought maybe something would happen in a bath or maybe, that would be in it somewhere. But I mean, he is marrying a human. So, when you do, I mean, clearly I don't have experience marrying an alien, but I'm going to compare it completely, politically incorrectly as like an interfaith marriage. I mean, you do kind of try to see both sides. You try to meet things halfway. Granted, maybe not with your, bachelor party, but I wish we could have seen like the deleted scenes. I wish in this episode, I wish we could have seen, their bachelor's party and then Christy's like very tame bachelorette party where they're, I don't know, I don't even know what they would be doing, but clearly they,
Finger knitting.
finger knitting.
Let me do that with air quotes. Finger knitting. Do you see my air quotes?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and talking about their traditions and that I want to go back to that Tilo. That was very, very interesting. That custom, very casty, explains the fact that a casty woman is blind in the world and that her husband is going to show her the world, reveal everything to her. And I had two thoughts to that. One, that is so sexist. It's not the right word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It's not sexist. It's I had the word earlier.
It's completely inhumane, and it's just like it's really like you're basically, that's like chattel, like that's basically your property. And the fact that she's not even basically a human or a real person until she marries you. I mean, they're just trying to get a rise out of feminerds on this one.
And then the second thought I had was, had I been raised casty, that almost sounds beautiful.
Yeah. So, okay, you know what? I'll meet you halfway because you're right. Okay. There's this, yes, if it were equal and there was this romantic kind of way of looking at it.
It is a romantic gesture to the casties.
Especially to the casty men.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, we haven't heard anything but Stama refer to casty women and how they're being held down. It's very much a man's society there.
Yeah, and that whole ritual thing, I mean, we only saw one side of it. So there may be some other rituals that go along with the male casties that are, come off just as wrong, but they mean something within the culture. And so, there's a fine line. But number one, I mean, who wants to wear that on their wedding day? So I'm really kind of with Christy in that, oh, really? I don't get to wear a delicate veil. I have to wear this piece of armor. That I just loved both the practical applications of that particular
if you think about
tradition.
But if you think about it, the Tilo is very much a veil.
Mm.
When we
of the worst kind.
Of the worst kind, yes. But
Mm-hmm.
it still is a veil. I mean, the lifting the veil at the wedding is also congruent to the idea of we're revealing the world to you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right. Those traditions actually are born of kind of the same thing.
And we're raised and we're brought up to it that we don't think anything of it until somebody outside the culture sees it and says, hey, that's kind of misogynistic. That was the word I was looking for earlier.
Fias brings out, so he's just making me madder and madder, but he does say that casty culture, it's revealed that it's strongly patriarchal, which we've seen, even down to the women kneeling on the floor while the guys stand. So he's paying attention. And I do like that I like this idea of challenging these kind of cultural norms and comparing them to, let's say, human culture, where Amanda's mayor and she's doing, she's running a town, compared to someone like Stama, who's basically running behind the scenes and who, sometimes gets very frightened because she is stepping outside of those cultural norms. So I agree with Fias. I do want them to show more of that in later seasons. And I think that with Stama stepping out, we're going to see that head to head.
That's what I was just about to say. That's exactly what they're doing. Because they've started with a lock. They're gonna push it real heavy with Stama, but we're seeing all of these traditions being pushed. The boundaries are starting to go away. We don't have casty versus Earth. We have this hybrid culture. It's very much like, and I'm going to use a reference that I'm more familiar with. You've got your Californians and you've got your Mexicans, and then now you've got your Mexicals. Your Mexicalis.
Yeah.
And the cultures just dive. They clash, they mix, and it's one new culture. Here in Texas, it's Tex-Mex.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
It happens. The lines blur, and that's exactly what I think that the showrunners are trying to push. They're trying to show relationship between these Votans and these humans. I mean, we're seeing that with Alec and Christy wanting to get married. We're seeing them try to shrug off tradition. We're trying to see Stama take those weights off her shoulders and become an independent woman without her husband's strength. At first, she's going to be using Alak as a face. Eventually, she may step in front of him and say, "This is all me."
And I hope there's conflict there too. I do hope that, so this would just be interesting. Like if Alec, clearly in some regards, he doesn't believe in some of the cultural norms and some of the men dominate the women because he's not like that with Christy. In some ways, he's open to hearing what she has to say. When she said she didn't want to bathe, with the entire family, he kind of listened to her and said, okay, I see where you're coming from, blah, blah, blah. And I wonder as he grows
Well,
older, if he's going to keep those or if he's going to kind of go back to the cultural norms that he knows.
well, he is shrugging some. He's still pretty comfortable with others. I mean, we did see him hug his mother in bath beads, like no
Yeah.
problem whatsoever. And most of us would think, okay, that's my mother, and she's touching me.
Right,
It's
which is a no-go.
it's
Meanwhile, the rest of us would be like, it's Stama and she can touch me wherever she wants.
as long as you're
But
not her son.
yeah, even yeah. Yeah, that whole thing is, and then to take it even further, I mean, this is getting on the verge of just weird, but is Alec gonna, Christy's probably not gonna be that way with her son or her daughter or what have you. And I just cannot wait for these kind of things to play out. This is all assuming they have a baby anyway. So again, we're getting into those season 2 predictions. So
Well, I'm
I digress,
we're
but
pretty sure she's gonna have a baby.
yeah, I
That's
would. Yeah, because even the clip with Rafe in the bath, something, I think we are incredibly certain because something alluded to that in a clip that they actually showed.
the clip they showed at New York Comic Con where Rafe was
Yeah.
talking to the Cassie girl right before he got into the bath. We're talking about things that are very minute in this episode. The biggest thing about the episode was the killing of Hunter Bell.
You're right. That's like the first thing that we lead off with. And this whole episode's interesting because it all stems on someone that we've never really met before. I mean, we've heard of Kenya's husband. We've heard she's been with someone, but we don't know this guy. And so it all kind of stems on us caring about or wondering what happened to this guy that we've never actually heard of. So it's just other people's connection to him. So it's an interesting way to write an episode. And luckily, it went off very well.
If it wasn't for Hunter Bell, we wouldn't know a lot about our main characters. And that was the whole point. We never really had to know who he was because through everybody else, we got to know who he was.
Right.
And
It was just kind of a pathway to see into these other characters, especially Rafe and
Daytak,
Daytak.
that was the biggest one for me as well. Rafe and Daytak actually colluding together and being a little buddy.
Yeah, and I just wonder, I mean, clearly we know what happened, stuff happens, Stocko happens over the years, but just to see them like that, in so many episodes of Defiance, every episode that I watch just makes me want to go read an entire either graphic novel or novel of the backstory of how they got to that point. And this is one of those. I'm like, well, what happened between the two of them? It sounds like they were really trying to figure something out, and then it did not work out between
Well,
them.
and that's the problem with this project Sci-Fi took on. Not only is it a transmedia experience with the game and the show, they've left this universe so widely open and they've created such a huge Bible that there's room for comic books, there's room for novels, there's room for webisodes. We need more. We really do.
Yeah, and that was the most interesting flashback of that entire episode. And I hope that, we'll see this come season 2, since Rafe's clearly staying with the Tars, and either, even if Daytak's not there when he's there, I mean, he's gonna find out, and I just can't wait for them to work together as
I
in-laws.
think the first thing Daytak's going to do is kick him out. Kick Rafe
Oh,
out.
I
Yeah.
imagine if he finds out Rafe was in his bath. I mean, come on. Gee.
That's the least of my worries. I think Stama's going to get a little procreational.
Yeah. Fias actually makes a good point in the chat room. He says, I hope they're waiting to see if the show keeps its following, and then maybe we'll see more lore outside of the show. I'm hoping that too. I can't wait for someone to option, a graphic novel or something out of it. Usually it's in the reverse. Like some things are graphic novel and then they'll make it into a show. But I would just love to see backstory, and there's such a rich universe here. So hopefully you're right, Fias.
Well, let's hope that Sci-Fi's publishing machine can actually get people into this. We need
Hmm.
we need those webisodes to get out there for people to see. We need some more events in Defiance Game to get more gamers in there, and we really need them to push those commercials for season 2.
Yep.
So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to your last episode. Past is Prologue. This is the big one before the finale, and this is very Mayor Nikki heavy.
Yeah, it's so rich. I think this is one, there are so many good episodes in this season, but this is the one where it just set me up so much for the season finale. I was on the edge of my seat this entire episode, and maybe I also really like the title of it. It just flows really well. But one thing that, if we're talking about, things that we wish we could have seen is, I mean, Amanda Rosewater had this mentor that rescued her from being a janitor. She took her under her wing. Amanda then becomes mayor. Then this person, ends up dead in a car, supposedly because she committed suicide. And we see
Supposedly.
Amanda giving, right, exactly. We see Amanda giving the eulogy, and she's, put together, I think Daz from Twitter live tweeted that she looks straight out of a L'Oreal commercial during the eulogy. And it's like, wait a second, there's something more here. I wish I could have seen Amanda deal with that and try to digest the fact that her mayor committed suicide, that she left a note saying that she murdered people, and it's just kind of covered up. And it sticks with me. When I rewatched it, I was like, wait a second, I'm missing something here.
And what's interesting is I kind of hoped that episode had gone a different way. Last
Oh.
episode, we saw Doc Ewell do what she thought was best
Hmm.
and stuck a blade in Mayor Nikki.
Yeah.
Now, and that's a figurative blade, but I wanted her to take the blame for the death, and not blame, but not where she got punished or locked up, but to the point where it was like, I had to do it. This is what she did. She's going crazy. She needed to pay for her sins.
So do you think she could have done that without alluding to the Kaziri? You think she could have said, look, I can
No,
prove that she killed.
she
Okay, 'cause
couldn't.
see,
She couldn't have. I mean, everything would have come out in the open had she done that, and the ending would have been completely different. But I don't like Doc Ewell sitting in the shadows, because this whole episode, after the death of Mayor Nikki, it was very much the equivalent of Doc Ewell sitting at a bar and drinking and moping.
yeah,
She was quiet. She was in the dark. She was messing with and tinkering with her other half of the Kaziri, and just almost didn't utter hardly a word.
which is what was bothersome, and it still bothers me because again, we don't know Docule. Like, granted, yes, she is my wife. I want to marry her. I feel like I know her, but she's such a mystery, right? So we actually don't know because in the earlier episode, Docule had said something to Nikki like, "This is wrong. Like, you don't need the Kaziri. Like, you don't need to be going after it like this." And then she gets it in her possession, and then she hides it, and she doesn't tell anyone about it. And is that just her scientific self kind of saying, like, no, I want to look into this and examine it myself? Why wouldn't she just come out there and say,
And
here's what's going on?
did she know what it was for?
Right. And there's a part of me that, I mean, she's the smartest person in Defiance. And I think if she had to know what it was for because she didn't want Nikki, she didn't,
They
she
had
knew Nikki was going too far.
they had an idea of what it was for, and they had stories, but they weren't there to event the thing, and they took forever finding it. Nikki established Defiance because of the mines, because she assumed that it was there, and that was the whole premise of starting Defiance there.
Yeah, I hope this is, again, this is the cynical part of me, but I hope that this is just another way that, I mean, I don't know, that Docule is just as complex as everyone else, because there's a part of me that thinks that she wanted to harness control of whatever this was too, whether as a scientific discovery or, for her own personal, I mean, she really wanted to know what it did.
It is very hard to figure out what Doc Ewell's actual motives are, what her
Yeah.
desires are. Is she one that wants power? Is she somebody that has the capability of being nefarious and being the big baddie? Or is she just really a curious doctor.
Yeah, or is she, yeah, exactly. Is she so kind of rational and logical that at times her methodical way, because the way she went about this whole situation was kind of really methodical if you think about it. She talked to Nikki, she tried to talk her out of it. That didn't work, so she moves on to her next step in the process, which is killing her. So I can see the rationality
Yeah,
behind what she
that
did.
was pretty opposite ends of the spectrum there. I mean, I think she skipped a step or two in between.
You mean
But
between trying to talk to someone and then killing them? Yeah,
yes,
you're probably right.
but
Um,
she probably saw that there was no changing Nikki. There was nothing they could do
yeah.
about it. Nikki was trying to clean up loose ends, but she caused most of that problem. And while, yeah, she was trying to clean it up, she's being sloppy. And
Right.
there's no room for that.
And then, yeah, sloppy because then, Arissa starts getting affected by this whole thing. And, there's that whole, you put it in the show notes here when Arissa and Tommy are, doing their thing. And Tommy really lets either Tommy's really good or the Kaziri is, taking possession of Arissa. You never really know.
Oh, no, I think we know. Tommy is still a youngin', and he's pretty inexperienced. I think we know. Just because
I
Arissa can't feel her legs does not mean it was Tommy.
Can you imagine being in the writer's room or in their, when they read
Yes.
over the script at the table there, and then just
Six
the lewd jokes that must come from the various actors between,
six men and
Grant and
women
Tony?
6 men and women
Yeah.
reduced down to boys and girls giggling at their snarkiness. Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I want to see that behind the scenes video.
So we have Doc Yule experimenting with the Kaziri. We have a murderous intention and plot worked out by Alak and Datek, which was actually kind of
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, that whole thing, yeah, that was a very difficult part of the episode just because I just like the way it combined irrationality with politics and, but my question is, so Stama tells Kenya at the beginning of that episode, "Hey, there's a plot to kill your sister and I'm coming to you." And clearly she knows that Kenya is going to tell Amanda this and Amanda's going to tell Nolan this and, word's going to get out. So was Stama and Daytak were they colluding on that?
It seems very much that the show was trying to point you in that direction. Yeah, that Datak and Sama intentionally put Alex's friend in harm's way just to create a scandal. So
Right, and that could have been completely outside of because I just look at it two ways. In some ways, I really want to think that Stama and Daytak are a team and they're working together at all times. But then throughout the season, it just doesn't seem that way. It seems like they're each very much working their own paths, and occasionally they come together and kind of check in. But so Stama's whole thing of telling Kenya, "Hey, I heard this about your sister," that could have just been a ploy to make Amanda pull out of the debate, and then, maybe Daytak would have won. So that may have been Stama's own way of taking care of her husband, right? Just working behind the scenes. And then Daytak's got his own plan over here that could have actually stood on its own without the Stama part. And I just wonder, that they may not have been talking to each other about that.
that's a possibility, but I like to think that she does love him. She's said so
Hmm.
outright, and she is killed for him. She loves Daytak. She will do anything for it. She still wants to fight this.
Yeah, she's still working her own battle, but within like this framework. Like she knows she can do it within a certain boundaries
She's
almost.
trying to be a strong, independent woman without men telling her what to do. She's trying to
Right.
show that she loves and supports her husband and family. I believe that they did plan this together, and not that they were not communicating, but things happen, and Daytak goes back to the old ways. I mean, it's just so
Yeah.
ingrained in him because he was never upper class. Never. He was always dirt. He never got that chance to be the type of casty he was told he needed to be. This is his chance to
Right.
do it. But this is also her chance to break those chains. So there's a big conflict in the way they live and see each other.
And she's still trying to be an independent woman, but still trying to be a good wife. I'm telling you, This is classic Jay-Z and Beyonce. I'm going to write a paper on the parallels between Datak and Stama and Jay-Z and Beyonce. But you're right. I think both of them are really trying to have it both ways. I really want to see how Datak struggles with, I mean, he probably doesn't struggle with this because he probably doesn't give a stocko, but on some level, Datak knows, he has to know this, that Stama is much smarter than he is. And I really want to see him struggle with that in season two. The fact that he's been taught all his life that because he's a male, so he's clearly better than his wife. He's better than Stama. I really want to see Datak struggle with the fact that maybe, just maybe, Stama's smarter than you. She's better than you, and she's much better at manipulating people than you. I can't wait to see them
Well,
really go head to head because of that.
we've kind of already seen that, though.
Yeah, well, you mean
Election Day.
yes. Oh my gosh. I cannot. Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes between the two of them. Hands down, because you just see the role reversal. Like Daytak is completely in charge and Stama is not in charge at that moment.
Well, she was so used to skirting that line that she kind of crossed over and pushed too far. And Daytak's reaction was of violence. So, but we'll discuss that one next time because that is finale.
That's finale. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about Jesse Does Defiance because there's been a couple episodes since last recording.
Yeah, two. Which one is my favorite and one is my least favorite. So I'll let you guess which one.
There's actually three.
Oh, the kittens one. You're right.
We didn't talk about the kittens ones because it came out the day after we recorded. Death by Kittens, which made me absolutely sad because I miss Jared.
Jared was so good. I just hope that they'll have another bartender at the Needwant who is a Liberata, who looks exactly like Jess Nichols in a Liberata costume, and everything will be right in the world.
Well, I think we need more Liberata, period. And if that means giving Jesse Nichols more work, then by gosh, yeah, we need more Liberatas.
Yeah, she can handle it.
You know, it dawned on me while I was watching this clip. All of Jared's paintings in his house were of cute and cuddly earth animals. I mean, I don't know if that's due to the fact that he found these paint by numbers and just decided to do them, or he has a fascination for all these old world animals that don't exist anymore.
Okay, you just made Jared so much more human, and I think I'm gonna cry because now I really miss him because he was so sweet. I think it's actually both. He found all these.
He had a passion for art, first off.
Yeah, and he found them, and the fact that, okay, now, I mean, I'm a cynical person, so I'm going to laugh at this, but the fact that Defiance manages to do this, manages to, like, get me all up in tears because a bartender, Liberata named Jared, used to do paint-by-number pictures of kittens. Like, that's an incredible show right there.
And this is why we do breakdowns. So we don't miss a damn thing because there's so much detail in this set, people overlook it.
And I want to know, here's my big question. If I ever met Jess Nichols, I would want to know who actually did those paint by numbers because, you know, authenticity, I would hope that Jess did them all herself and
we should ask her.
Completed all the. We should. I'm sure on Twitter she would respond right away. She's probably up now because I believe she's in Japan or I'm not sure where she is, but
we should totally tweet at her.
We will. We'll get an answer for this. Don't worry.
All right.
Twitterville. We'll figure it out.
Then there was another episode, Directing Defiance, which I thought was very much staged and very terrible.
Okay, great. I was about to yell out least favorite because hello, least favorite. Like, what are you? He just goes. You could just tell, like that. As much as I love the directors, and they were probably busy actually doing their job, so they probably didn't have time to, you know, do this. But you could just tell it just wasn't as fun as the other ones.
It wasn't, and you know, there was nothing special about this video. Every video that we've watched so far has some kind of insight into a character or some backstage scene for season 2. This one had neither of those things.
Yeah, it was just kind of a check-in, which, you know, I was glad to see the two directors. I mean, that's pretty cool, but I just wish it could have either been longer and Jesse could have gone someplace else, or there was just nothing really to that one. So if you missed that one, no problem.
Yeah, you didn't miss a thing. But this next one was the absolute best. and
It
only
was so good. Oh my
and
gosh. I
only
want to watch
because
it
I am
over and over.
and only because I am her fan.
I mean, how can you not? I think okay, I mean Trina Keating, she's just the best thing out there. She's
Now,
amazing.
this one is called Docule Unmasked, and if you've followed Defiance Universe on Facebook or on Twitter, you've seen the picture that they're using for this video, and it's hilarious. It makes her look like a monitor lizard.
Ooh, that's a lot better than what they were comparing it to on the clip. That's great.
But
Oh, I have to put in Hellbugs is in the chat room, and she just said Jess Nichols is in Beijing right now. So thank you, Hellbugs.
well,
That is accurate.
we don't want to interrupt her fun right now.
Exactly. She's probably, but yeah, back to the Docule Unmasked. I mean, that's my favorite. My favorite behind the scenes that I've ever seen.
Yeah, my wife watched this clip, and she thought it was quite odd seeing Docule in just regular clothing and having her face still on, just bald headed, wearing human clothing, walking around. She kind of said, "I'd love to see her just wandering around Vancouver, waving at people and going, sup." Yeah, just
Right, just like that. Exactly.
and I could totally see Trina Keating doing that. And she should just. And I probably shouldn't say this because she probably hates the darn thing and wants to get out of it as soon as possible. But she should wear her face mask around town and just say hi to people. I would love to see the reactions. Jesse Rath should follow her with a camera.
I was just about to say, if you put Jesse in that mix, it would be gold. That would just be so fantastic. Because, I mean, Defiance is very popular, but I would imagine that most people that come in contact with the Docule character would have no idea what was going on.
Now,
And so,
I have to point out two things. Did you see how thick her mask was?
yeah, when they cut into it, holy crap. Which means, you know what that means? Her head is
Hot
actually a lot tinier.
and
Well, and
and hot.
yeah.
All I can think of is sweat.
Yeah,
That's
it's gotta be really hot. And then just the fact that this is when my mind goes to, oh my gosh, like how much supplies they
yeah.
use. The fact that they do this every day for her,
And that
and the
was
fact
number
that she
two.
has to sit there. Yeah, it's just, oh, it's just, her dedication to her role is quite spectacular,
Well,
I have to say.
if they do that, she gets up every morning and they create a face for her every morning. One, that is
I
a lot
mean,
of wasted material, and two, oh my gosh, she has got a dedication to her craft.
she really does. I mean, that is a lot of, it's a lot of time. And then not only the mask, so that's like one aspect of it. Like that's a whole thing, like so much time. But then you've got to figure out how to be able to act in that thick mask.
But
I'm just
and she
amazed.
said before it's very difficult for her to talk because
Yeah,
the lips are real tight, which kind of gives her that pursed lip look and helps with the sassiness.
it does. Yeah, it does. And the fact that I love this clip just because intuitively you would think that usually when you see these kinds of clips, it's, oh, let's watch how the mask is put on. Let's watch how the makeup's put on. And I just love that Defiance just does it completely backwards and is like, well, we're gonna watch you take the mask off and just her and Jesse together, I imagine they would be so much fun to. They both have this kind of dry sense of humor, so I think they'd be really fun. And interestingly enough, every time I think of this is kind of weird, but so Trina, she tweets, pretty frequently, and if it's not about Defiance or a raccoon, it's generally about cats. And so now, whenever I see something about Jared or I think about Jared and Defiance, I then think about Trina Keating, and there's just this weird thing going on between a connection between Trina Keating and Jared and cats and Defiance. So if she's listening, yeah, there's a lot going on.
Are there still cats in Defiance?
No, oh, this is a question for Carly, like at Carly Co. I mean, because she's the first one or one of the first ones that pointed out the Defiance dogs because everyone was tweeting pictures of their dogs. And then there was a dog on the actual show Defiance, I
Yeah,
think
we had a sense-off
once.
dog
Yeah.
walker.
And then no cats, which to me is kind of opposite. I mean, cats are really smart. Don't you think they would have found a way to survive the
Well, I think
apocalypse?
Doc Yule needs to have a pet cat.
That would be perfect. I mean, talk about kindred spirits.
All right, so that's pretty much
Right.
all that we found so far. That's been a very, very newsy week.
Yeah, I love how we were worried about, in the hiatus here, we were kind of worried about content, but then each time we do this, we find a way to talk over an hour about it. So clearly there's still stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we've pretty much pushed the hour boundary. So I'm gonna run very quickly through news from the Bay Area because I do have an announcement to make.
News from the Bay Area.
The fifth and final DLC for Season 1 has been announced, and they're calling it the Arc-Tech Revolution.
Oh,
Yeah, the Arc-Tech Revolution is basically about your ego, and it sounds like your ego, while you are running around and salvaging arc falls, your ego is running around and becoming more powerful. So they've increased the ego rating cap, and with it, they've changed the way that you push your HP, your DPS, and your shield capabilities. They're tailoring it to shift with you. And not only you, they're doing it for the enemies in Defiance. Which is interesting because that means everything's scaling up and down towards what you've got. And while Defiance has been already doing that, it seems like with the raising of the ego rating and with the tapering of the skills that you're getting with your ego rating, it's going to get increasingly harder, which I think is what the game needs. Now, there's also going to be a new salvage matrix. That way you can upgrade your weapons. I mean, if you've got a weapon that's already at your ego rating, they're adding a feature to upgrade your ego on the gun, or your ego requirements for the gun, so that you can level up your ego and still keep your favorite weapon, which is awesome. You don't have to go scrounging around, because when you find those mods that just fit it just right and make your weapon awesome, and then you jump up another 100 ego and your gun's useless, it hurts. It really, really does. So up the ego rating cap, adding the adjustment to the ego on your weapons with the salvage matrix, that's going to be awesome. There are going to be some new-ish memories, and I say new-ish because it's going to be the same enemies. They're just going to be slightly redesigned because they're also upgrading while you're upgrading. So they're getting new outfits, and they're getting a little stronger, a little bigger, a little badder, a little harder to kill. But they're also going to drop better loots. So it seems like everything in Defiance right now is going to get an upgrade, which is good news. Co-op maps, there's going to be some difficulty options so that you can up the difficulty very much like you would in any other game, like, say, Diablo. Go from normal to hard, and then to hardcore. You can raise up your difficulty level, play with more players, get better drops. Okay? Then there's also dynamic event scaling, so you can play with your friends. If I'm playing and I'm Ego 2000 and I've got a friend who's just jumping on and they're Ego 120, you'd think we wouldn't be able to play together, but with this dynamic event scaling, they will actually jump up to your Ego and you guys can play together. Of course, they'll be earning XP and leveling up as well, but I am told that it's not going to be at a rapid increment like power leveling, which is good. I like that. Damage types have been changed. Your incendiary weapons, your electric weapons, they're all going to start doing damages to certain aspects of the enemy. Incendiaries are going to do more DPS to your health and less to the shields. To the enemy's health and less to shields. The electric damage was going to do more DPS to shields and less to the health, which makes sense. If you want to knock somebody's shield down, you fire an electric weapon. The siphon will steal some from shield, but mostly from HP. It'll still grab from both. Radiation deals direct damage and bypasses armor plating. The bioweapons will do DPS to armor plates. What are armor plates? They are new damage mitigating buffs granted passively by shield equipment. So it's basically like you've got these armor plates. I'm assuming they're going to be spinning around you. Like when you get fired and you see your shield, you see this bubble around you, kind of phasing off on this bubble. While the armor plating, I assume, is going to be floating right in front of it. Nothing's been shown yet. I anticipate some new content being shown tomorrow during the Twitch live stream on Fridays. But as of yet, I have no idea what the armor plates look like. But they are going to be pretty much perks. They do not regen, and they can be repaired at extraction points only. And they stack with your passive armor, so now you're getting armor buffs. You can go out feeling a little more secure. Then, of course, they're going to do those changes that we talked about the last time with the grenades, spikes, and stims. Basically, you're going to get universal consumables, and they're going to be called charges. So now you don't have to worry about picking up your specific grenade you have equipped because you're out of them. Now you just pick up universal grenades, and it'll fill them back up. Everything else that's on the floor that you cannot pick up are going to be auto-salvaged, which is going to save you room in your inventory, room in your claim items, and if you're like me and you hate leaving things on the ground, this is going to be a godsend. I'm a little OC when it comes to that. So that's pretty much the news. That's the new DLC coming up. There's no word on story content, but the last DLC, Gunslinger Trials, has enough story content that can tie us over. And I am going to positively assume that right before Season 2 starts with Defiance, we're going to get some tie-in content, much like we did with Season 1 of Defiance. We've got that first episode content. For now, I think this will stem us over until Season 2.
That's great. So this one sounds like housekeeping, kind of.
It sounds very much like spit and polish,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of upgrades to systems already in place with a few additional features. And don't get me wrong, it sounds small, but it's a lot of stuff packed into this one DLC, and it's going to benefit everybody. This game is starting to be richer. I was going to say fuller, but it's richer. There's so much more you can do now. There's more ways for you to play with your friends, and it feels richer.
Great. So if people maybe put down the game or a while ago said, "Oh, I'm not playing anymore," now's the time for them to pick it back up, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
and especially if they didn't buy any of the DLC, there's a lot of upgrades that are free with the DLCs that have come out that you don't have to pay for. So they're going to get a lot of the spit and polish. They're not going to get things like the vibroblades for the casties or some of the outfits with the gunslingers, but they're getting the core game with all the new updates, and they should be relatively happy. So this is good news for the Defiance game. Okay, so let's go ahead and go out with some coupon codes. Michelle, you want to go ahead and...
Yes, so we've got coupon codes for you. First up, Doghouse Systems. So you can use the coupon code MMOReporter at doghousesystems.com to double your RAM. And Ben, I'm sure you can talk about how amazing that is.
Well, actually, the person you want to talk to is Chris. Chris has been absolutely wowed by Doghouse Systems. He's been talking about how some of his other co-hosts have picked up Doghouse Systems laptops and has just loved the build quality. So yeah, they're great systems, and getting your RAM doubled for free.
That's pretty. Even I know that's a pretty awesome deal.
RAM is not cheap nowadays, so definitely use that code.
And then, so Audible, which I can speak to just because I love Audible, is you can go to, so we've got a coupon code for you there. So you can go to audibletrial.com/MMOReporter to get your first month free. So you can go and explore all the audiobooks that they have, a lot of different genres, a lot of different, whatever you might be into, you can probably find it there. And I find it's a great way to say that I've read something when I actually haven't. So I use it quite often in the car, when I'm cooking, etc.
Read, listen. It's about the same thing.
Yeah, absorb, basically.
You still get the story. You still get to enjoy that wonderful writing. So yeah, if you join Audible, they will give you your first month free, and if you decide to cancel, the book that you get that first month is yours. You get to keep it. So it's risk-free, pretty much. Mm-hmm. All right, so last-minute announcements. Join Women of Defiance and Hellbugs in Love. Yeah, Hellbugs, we're talking about you, if you're still there in the chat room. Join them on Twitter Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for their last Relive Defiance. They promise to... It's the season finale, but you know what? It's a pretty big one. They promise to explode all over your timeline with the Relive Defiance rewatch event. So please join us. And if you want to join them in the Relive Defiance fun, but you don't have Defiance Season 1 on DVD or Blu-ray, you can always view the whole season on the web or on your mobile devices with Sci-Fi Now. It is available on Android and iOS, and you do need a subscription to a premium TV service like cable or satellite to sign up. It's going to ask you. If you use AT&T, you log into your AT&T account, it says, okay, you've got Sci-Fi, let's watch Sci-Fi Now. And those of you who want to go ahead and rewatch the game, or rewatch the series and enjoy the game at the same time, you can join now because the Season 1 crossover events are in-game until Season 2 airs. So, right now is the perfect time for you to meet Nolan and Arissa before they leave for the New Frontier, and then go ahead and follow and take part in their adventures as you watch and play Defiance Season 1 side by side. And then, of course, last but not least, join Defiance Reporter's PC clan, Igni Farok. There is no registration required, and all you have to do is find me in-game, Corso Van Lonk. I'll send you an invite, and we can go do some arenas together. All right, so we have several ways that you can contact us here at Defiance Reporter. Michelle, would you like to go ahead and let our listeners know about that?
Yes, there are so many ways that you can contact us. We're like the easiest thing out there, basically, to contact. So you can email us at defiance@mmorreporter.com, or you can always just kind of, lay low and visit the website at defiancereporter.com. Or you can get really up close and personal and give us a voicemail at 616-666-6778. Or you can click the new widget on the right-hand side of the page when you visit the website, and that'll take you right to it. Or you can go the social media route at facebook.com/defiancereporter. Or you can watch us and listen to us at YouTube on youtube.com/user/MMO Reporter Network. Or you can always, always, always find us on Twitter at twitter.com/defiancepodcast or at Defiance Podcast. Or you can find me, Michelle, at twitter.com/womenofdefiance or, at Women of Defiance. You can always find Ben at twitter.com/NebsInsane or at NebsInsane, and that is NEBS insane.
I'm going to make this interesting. I want you all to leave us a voicemail. Leave us a voicemail about what you want in Season 2, and we will air it next episode. Okay?
Nice.
We will go ahead and relive the finale, and then we will discuss what we want to see in Season 2.
Okay, that's a great idea, and I'm actually going to call people out on Twitter. So beware those of you on Twitter, like Fias and Angelita and Carly and Hellbugs and everyone that I normally talk to. I definitely want to hear your voice on a voicemail.
So let us know what you want to see in Season 2. What are your predictions? What don't you want to see? And if you want, tell us about the webisodes. We'll keep it short. We'll put you in the show, and we'll have a discussion about it. So thank you all for listening to us. Michelle, it was another great show. I had quite a blast discussing casty culture with you.
Same here. We delved deep. I enjoyed it.
We did. And chat room, thank you so much for joining us. Those of you listening at home, we thank you for downloading our show week after week. We hope that you continue to do so, and most importantly, we hope to see you in game.